this review was inevitable. Hello YouTube, I'm Darkest101 and fuck it, this review is as late as it possibly could be, and I have no excuse for that other than the fact that the holidays, you lose track of time, I guess. I have no excuse. But regardless, The Crow. I maybe kind of sort of promised that I'd possibly in the future consider the eventuality that I might review The Crow in my Devil May Cry 4 review. To be perfectly honest, I did not know what I was expecting when I got this movie. Really, no idea, went in totally blind. And what do I find? The Joker crossed with Batman. Truly, there exists no deadlier combination. Except maybe for some kind of robotic Bat-Dinosaur with a mounted laser cannon on the back. Fuck, it's a thing, isn't it? Before you go trying to search that up, I'm gonna tell you, no matter how badass that image is, that movie is not worth sitting through, okay? Just don't ever watch that movie. It is such a stupid... What the fuck was I talking about? Oh yeah, The Crow. The Crow is one of those movies I've been telling myself that I'd get around to eventually. To be honest with you guys, I was always kind of scared off by the fact that this was apparently super violent and maybe even a little scary, but when I got round to it, I found nothing of the scary in it. I definitely saw the violence, let's be honest, but I did find myself enjoying it. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't exactly have the highest hopes going in this movie, but it's nice to be pleasantly surprised by a movie once in a while. We have to start with how this movie looks, and it tries to pull off this strange sort of grungy, gothic vibe type of thing. I mean, I get the grunge side of things. The city does look dirty, rough and decrepit, which I guess fits the character of Eric Draven, our main character, as he was like the lead guitarist in a band or something. But the gothic? I don't know, there's an attempt to making it gothic, what, by putting it on the Devil's Night the night before Halloween, having all that goddamned rain, making it look like England, and the makeup they put on Eric Draven when he becomes the Crow. And just the fact that the Crow is a really gothic bird in general, but nothing in the set design really adds to make it feel gothic. You can tell what they were going for, can't you? They were going to combine this sort of grungy, sort of angsty vibe with a more Tim Burton-esque sort of gothic appearance, and it didn't really pan out as well, because the Tim Burton is so subtle and the grunge is so in your face. The gothic is overpowered by the grunge and the whole place ends up looking like Detroit. The character of the Crow is well handled as well. If the situation would change, actually he'd make a pretty intimidating horror villain, which I guess fits the whole anti-hero archetype going on here. Anyway, the movie begins looking like an early preview for Gotham as the police investigate a murder and aggravated assault in which young guitarist Eric Draven is pronounced dead at the scene, and his fiancée Shelley Webster is wheeled away to hospital as under orders from... Wait, is that Winston? Well, look at that, it's nobody's favourite Ghostbuster. And yes, I am aware Ernie Hudson does not play a character called Winston in this movie, okay? Calm down, it's a joke. Shelley dies in the operating room and she and Eric are buried next to each other as a year passes, taking us to the days leading up to October 30th. The same goons who killed both Eric and Shelley are still hanging around and setting explosions around the city. Because that's what you need in Detroit, right? I mean, more explosions, more wanton destruction. Where the fuck's RoboCop when you need him? As they begin their devilry, however, something begins to stir in the graveyard. Okay. Legitimately fucking amazing. Gotta let you know that first. But the thing is, you look like Tommy Wiseau, so I have to make a joke.
You are lying. I never hit you. You are tearing me apart, Lisa!
I have now just officially ruined this movie forever. Eric makes his disoriented way from the graveyard, following a crow along the way, eventually making his way to his old home, finding it pretty much intact after the incident last year, complete with cat and everything. As he looks around the apartment, Eric flashes back to the night in which he and Shelley were murdered and remembers everything that happened to the both of them that night. Here's my problem with the movie. The crow is meant to be a symbol of the most tortured souls, and they come back to life in the most brutal and ruthless cases to right the injustices of their murders. So here's my question for y'all. Why isn't it Shelley who's brought back as the crow? I mean, think about it. Really think about it. Shelley was raped and beaten, and had to watch as her boyfriend was shot and thrown out of a window before her eyes, and then was left to die, struggling for every breath of air in her lungs for 30 hours straight. I mean, I know Eric suffered, but Jesus, I think Shelley got the short end of the stick 1 year prior. And for the reason the fact that Shelley Webster couldn't have been the baddest of this movie is the fact that it was male stereotypes must be in charge of all action movies, then that's just sad, because, first point, Eric Draven isn't exactly the most masculine looking man in the world, and aside from that, this movie came out in 1994. So don't bullshit me and say this wasn't done before. Alien had been out for 15 years, Aliens out for 8 years, and perhaps the best example of a female protagonist in a role of a traditional masculine action hero had been out for 3 years. Terminator 2 Judgment Day. If Sarah Connor can kick ass 3 years prior, I don't see why Shelley Webster shouldn't have been able to in 1994. Anyway, Eric ends up cutting his hands on some broken glass and discovers that he now possesses the power of regeneration. And so, he does the first thing that he can think to do. Put on a skin-tight leather outfit and more makeup than a Detroit prostitute. Because, you know, that's the first thing you think of when you're being brought back from the fucking dead. I gotta get me some ass! Anyway, Eric goes all Assassin's Creed and chases down one of the goons who murdered him in what transpires to be a fucking awesome fight scene. He of course demonstrates the fact that he's now a fucking ninja apparently and stabs the guy with his own knives. Which leads us to... The fuck? The fuck is with this club? This ain't the Bronze. When did this script get injected with Joss Whedon? Anyway, Eric goes to see what looks to be Bob Hoskins after the Super Mario Bros. Movie, who, in this movie, is a fence for the goons who murdered Eric and his fiancée.
I'm looking for something in an engagement ring. Gold.
You're looking for a coroner. Shit for brains. Oh, shit. Oh, shit on me. Shit on me. Shit on me!
Dude, come on, there is a time and a place for shizer porn. Eric then begins tearing apart Hoskins' pawn shop as Winston investigates the crime scene Eric left behind earlier.
This could be a turf hit, but it doesn't look like your usual gang crap.
Come on, Albrecht, spare me. You're a beat cop now. So be a beat cop.
I'm supposed to thank you for that, right?
Word of the wise. Watch your fucking mouth.
Look, Winston, I know this probably might not be the time or the place, but you know, it's in the 90s, you know, mid-90s. I'd like to think maybe you wouldn't be penalized so much if you, because it's in the deck, man. That's all I'm gonna say. It's in the deck. Eric rips apart the pawn shop until he finds the rings of murdered people that have been sold there over time. After interrogating Hoskins for information about where the rest of his murder squad is, he douses the whole place in gasoline, snatches a shotgun for obvious reasons and a guitar because who doesn't need to lay down some sick solos on the path of vengeance, loads said shotgun with the remaining rings, and uses it to blow the fucking place sky high. Okay, Eric either put a shell in that gun beforehand, which makes the whole ring metaphor utterly pointless, or whoever wrote this movie doesn't know how guns work. Jesus, in hindsight, I should not have said that. Either way, Hoskins ends up with a severe concussion. On fire. Jesus Christ, this really is a set of a Super Mario Bros. Movie. Anyway, the higher-ups of this criminal empire hear about this, but they aren't really fussed because they expect things to be running as smoothly as ever. Meanwhile, Eric is giving another one of the lunatics who murdered him a mindfuck.
Stop me if you heard this one.
Jesus Christ walks into a hotel. Ow. He hands the innkeeper 3 nails and he asks, "Don't you ever fucking die? You put me up for the night?"
Oh, hey, come on. Crappy religious jokes are my thing on this channel. He gives the scumbag a bath and leaves him to drown whilst we cut back to Hoskins getting ready for his role as Eddie Valiant. Or reprising, I don't know when the fuck Roger Rabbit came out. What can you expect? I don't do research, I'm just here to make the laughy times happen. Granted, I do it very badly, but still. Eric then sticks the loon he left drowning, full of morphine, and disappears into the night. He quickly scares the shit out of Winston as he breaks into his apartment, though.
Jesus. Don't ever do that, man.
Good likeness.
I saw your body, man. You died. You got buried.
Oh, come on, you should be used to that feeling by now.
I don't know what I am. I need you to tell me what happened to us.
Oh, you took a 6-story swan dive out of a window. She was beaten and raped. Died at the hospital. Hey, you ask, man. I mean, come on, read the file. Shelley Webster held on for 30 hours in intensive care, and the body finally just gave it up. I saw it, man. I couldn't do jack for her.
Don't touch me!
Hey. You okay?
I saw her. I saw her through your eyes.
I like this scene. It shows two good people sharing a moment of remembrance for someone who shouldn't have been taken from them. It's a chance to get to know just what type of man Eric Draven really is outside of murdering people. For Winston, it doesn't really add a whole lot to his character because we already knew that he was a good cop just trying to do his job, but it does help us sympathise and connect with our main character a little. When we get back to the big bad guy of this movie, I know this guy is meant to have a name, by the way, but for the life of me, I never found out what exactly it was, so I'm just gonna call him Jackie. Because he looks like that motherfucker from The Darkness. So Jackie ends up talking to Hoskins about what happened to his shop before stabbing him in the throat. Why? Because he's the bad guy and he is contractually obligated to do bad guy things. It's on the bad guy checklist, didn't you know? I think it's to kill someone under your employ or someone you hold authority over. Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's just after established criminal empire in movie presence, and just before kidnapping little girls. Anyway, after that, Eric uses the crow to find the last 2 members of the crew who killed him and Shelley the previous year. He jumps into the backseat of their car whilst one of them gets shit from a corner store and forces the remaining goon to drive off a pier into an explosion. He then leaves some fancy street graffiti to be found by the last man standing and walks off into the night. The next morning, Winston has a chit-chat with this asshole detective.
Who's the cartoon character in the painted face?
Hey, you're the detective. Why don't you tell me?
Okay, Gideon's blows all to hell and you're having a chit-chat with some weirdo who winds up in Deepert's car when it zigs instead of zags. Then you steal one of my case files from homicide and you're saying this is just a fucking automobile accident? Come on!
Yeah. Good speech, though. I didn't want to interrupt you. It sounded good. You gotta write that shit down.
All right, smartass. The captain's got a little love note waiting for you.
Welcome to the first day of the rest of your suspension.
Suspension? For what?
Seriously? Pull it out of the deck! Because there's literally no defense against it. We then get to a very mixed scene where Sarah makes her way up to Eric and Shelley's apartment to have a look around, whilst Eric is burning all the papers and photos left behind and reliving old memories of himself and Shelley whilst doing it. It's a good scene in that it shows the type of person and relationship that Shelley and Eric had, and it also shows that he's trying to put it all behind him with his mission and what. It's a weird scene, however, because Sarah ain't exactly the best child actor I've ever seen.
I miss you. And Shelley. Get so lonely all by myself. I thought you cared.
Sarah, I do care.
I mean, it's plainly obvious that this is her first time in a movie, or at the very least her first time in front of the camera. Which, to be perfectly honest, it's understandable. It's not exactly her fault. It is a little weird getting used to talking to a camera in the middle of an empty room. I mean, this reaction when she sees Eric still alive is weird as all fuck. It's kind of odd, you know? I mean, like I said, it is understandable. I mean, fuck, remember my first review of Sly Cooper? I look fucking weird. The next scene sees Jackie talking with all his big guys about the success of the previous night, but wants to make it bigger for Halloween, badder and more destructive. It's at this point that Eric walks in, because security is apparently a silly myth in this universe.
You're him, huh? The Avenger. The killer of killers. Nice outfit. Not sure about his face, though.
I just want him.
Well, you can have him.
I see you have made your decision. Now let's see you enforce it.
Oh, this is already boring the shit out of me. Kill him!
Okay. I'm just... little pause here, because it is impossible to talk about this movie, especially this scene, without first having to address an elephant in the room. In a tragic and fateful accident involving a squib-loaded gun on the set, Brandon Lee was shot, and after 6 hours of unsuccessful surgery and operations to try and save his life, he died in hospital at the age of 28. The shooting was deemed accidental and happened towards the end of filming the movie. The remaining scenes were filmed with Lee's stunt double. The film is dedicated in his memory and to his partner of 3 years, Eliza Hutton. It is a tragic loss, and some might consider it questionable that this movie even saw a release date. But at the same time, while questionable, it is a fantastic tribute to be left in the legacy of Brandon Lee. So, with that in mind, let's continue. Eric Draven proceeds to butcher the shit out of everyone in the joint until it's just him and the last of the group that murdered him and his beloved fiancée. And then he just straight up throws him out the window. For some reason though, Jackie's weird, for some reason Japanese sister figures out that the crow is what gives Eric his powers, and they come up with a plan to kill the crow and make Eric dead. This is just happening as Eric's making his way to the graveyard. Oh, and Sarah's there.
You're gonna say I shouldn't be in a cemetery in the middle of the night, right?
Safest place in the world to be.
Oh yeah, safest place in the world to be. Try telling that to any student of Sunnydale High. Of course, as she's making her way back home, she gets kidnapped, which ends up in a fucking awesome sword fight on top of the roof on a nearby church.
You know, my daddy used to say, every man's got a devil, and you can't rest till you find him. What happened back there with you and your girlfriend? I cleared that building. Hell, nothing in this town happens without my say-so. So I'm sorry if I spoiled your wedding plans there, friend. But if it's any consolation to you, you have put a smile on my face. You got a lot of spirit, son. I am gonna miss you.
I have something to give you. I don't want it anymore.
30 hours of pain. All
This is actually a really cool use of a power like empathy. It's actually very clever, and it's extremely fitting considering that this man just openly mocked Eric and the death of his fiancée. I'd say it was like a direct middle finger to the brain of the bad guy, except the brain doesn't exactly have any pain receptors, which is weird. The brain is where you think you'd have the most pain receptors. Nature, you weird. And that's pretty much the end of the movie. Eric makes his way back to the grave and is greeted by Shelley as he returns back to the land of the dead. There is a cool sort of little scene where Winston and Eric share a cigarette and have a little banter, and it's also how he says goodbye to the both of Sarah and Winston, but yeah, that's how the film ends. So ladies and gentlemen, that was The Crow, and it was okay. I liked it at least. The final fight scene is amazing, and the idea of The Crow as a hero is great, and some scenes are pretty cool and rather emotional. However, the colour palette I feel is a little too bland, and I wish we could have seen more of the interesting applications of Eric's powers like we saw in that final fight scene. Other than that, it feels like a standard action movie, but at the same time we know our main character is pretty much invincible for the most part, which is a major point against it. We're invested in his struggle, but not worried for his well-being because he's already dead. Ultimately, however, what saves this movie is Brandon Lee himself. The tragedy of his death may mark this movie, but his performance is undeniable. He portrays grief, anger, hatred, and yet at the same time can convey joy, compassion, and genuine care. It's an amazing performance and one that we will never get to see in a leading role again. Some of the other actors are good, but Brandon Lee by far and away makes this film what it is. Though this movie can drag here or there, admittedly, let's be honest, you cannot fault a spotless performance when it's there. And yeah, like I said, this movie can be slow in places, but at the same time, it can throw in some moments of genuine epicness. So with that in mind guys, The Crow gets a dark rating of...
They're all dead. They just don't know it yet.
And that's the end of today's review, guys. I am so sorry this review came out so late. I mean, this is meant to be Christmas review, but I am an appalling human being, apparently. So, yeah. But I hope you enjoyed today's review. If you have a suggestion for my next one, please drop it in the comment section below. And as usual, you've been watching Darkest101 Reviews. Thanks for watching. Good night, YouTube. Hey guys, before we roll the credits, I just have this quick little piece to say, and then I'll let you get on your way. I'm acutely aware that this isn't exactly a surplus of Darkest101 content, especially after we had to pull Salty to Abridged. We're still debating what to do with that, but in the meantime, there is a straw poll link in the description for you guys to vote on a new type of Darkest101 content that I'll be making in the new year, so yeah, that's pretty much it. This won't replace Darkest101 Reviews, no, this will just be something on top of it, something you get a little bit more, you know, it's just something that appears here and there. So with that in mind guys, I will let you get on. Good night, YouTube.